Hello, YouTube. This is Gava Guy. I just finished watching this week's episode of the Magic Sandwich Show. Great episode. Ozzy, Gary Edwards, GPR Doan, Jones, Hogtie, Concordance, AronRa were all participating in the conversation that they had related to science and philosophy, and just an excellent conversation. I got really frustrated listening to the discussion at one point toward the end of it was a 3-hour show, but the Ozzy was trying to press the point that inductive reasoning relies on an assumption, and the assumption is basically that in inductive reasoning works the assumption that what has happened in the past will be representative of what has happened, what will happen, what we can expect to happen in the future. And AronRa was basically rejecting this, saying that he believed, like mathematics, that 2 plus 2 is 4, that we can depend on the reliability of the constant speed of light in the universe, that these things could be true, or are true because it's impossible for them to be otherwise. The analogy that he gave was that flipping a two-headed coin, a coin with heads on two sides, is always going to land on heads, and that's how he feels that we can be absolutely certain that our laws of physics are universal and unchanging. The problem with this analogy is that when we have a coin, or we have a die that we're casting with 6 sides, a 6-sided die, we can examine the object and we can understand the odds that it will come to rest on one of those sides. So, a regular 2-sided coin with heads and tails, we know, okay, there are 2 possibilities. And with the die, there are 6 possibilities. With a 2-headed, coin with heads on both sides, there's only one possibility. There's one alternative to the way the outcome could be when you toss it. The problem with the laws of physics is we can't examine kind of the fabric of the universe. We observe that matter is attracted to matter, which or that matter, I guess, in a more Einstein kind of relativity concept of gravity, that matter somehow bends space-time in a way that draws matter to matter. We don't have the tools to examine this universe in such a way that we can verify that that's the only possible alternative. And we don't have kind of the fabric of space-time in our hands that we can examine it in the way that we could a coin. And so even though we see that things turn out this way, and we can document it and we can measure it, and it's reasonable to expect that it will persist in the same way that it has as far back as we know, and rolling back, time, and making predictions about where, you know, uh, celestial bodies have been in the past and things, et cetera, et cetera. There are ways that we can look back and try and roll the clock backwards. And as far as we understand and know, this has always been the case. But we don't know that just because, like the coin, we don't know that there are no other options that could possibly be the case. And as Ozzy tried to point out, we could wake up tomorrow and realize gravity's not working anymore, and we could say, "Oh, crap! Now what?" And this reality is really weird, because there's no guarantee that what has happened in the past will be representative of the future. It's the same with kind of the what you're doing when you make that assumption, and basically ignoring the fact that it's an assumption, is you're guilty of the swan fallacy, to say, okay, every swan I've ever seen is white, therefore all swans are white. As soon as you see a black swan, that claim that all swans are white is falsified, and there are many possibilities, logical possibilities of what colors a swan could be. There may be only one way that the universe could be put together. We don't have a set of universes that we have at hand that we can examine, and so all we have is this, and all we have is the past. Beg your pardon. So it's really, that's what we can see. But it could be that in the future we would discover that something else would happen. And that's all that there is with the problem of induction. It's an assumption, and as Ozzy said, and I believe Gary Edwards also nodded to this, that any reasonable person will make this assumption. It's a basic assumption that we need in order to go about the business of doing science. It's a basic assumption that we need in order to get up in the morning. And anybody that doubted inductive reasoning was probably having some mental illness problems. So, and certainly couldn't function in the world. But the whole point that philosophy and philosophers are making is to say, okay, well, this is a problem only in as much as we don't have a solution to it, but we have to go forward anyhow. And it's a limitation of science. It's a limitation of our capacity to reason and to know. And the problem with not grasping this, though, is that it leaves you vulnerable in debates and discussions with theists and believers who have a better grasp of this problem than you do, and so it behooves you, and it behooves all of us, to become somewhat familiar with these issues in philosophy, so that we are not caught, kind of barefoot in a field of glass that's laid out for us, and just completely unprepared. It's always good to have some basic philosophy that you can turn to and say, okay, well, yes, that's an assumption. And I think, AronRa, between you and me, it would just be good in general if you took a little piece of humble pie once in a while. I'm wrong a lot of times, and I do my very best to make corrections. And I would say this of the atheist community in general. If you're going to be a skeptic, you should be a skeptic of your own beliefs just as much as you are skeptical of other people's beliefs, and be willing to examine them. If you are so confident and so self-assured in your beliefs that you are, to the point where you're ridiculing and and mocking the people themselves, I think you've gone too far, and you need to take a step back. I think it's appropriate to ask questions. It's appropriate to present alternative possibilities and things like that. But it's not cool, and it's not helpful to our conversation and to our cause of encouraging people to be skeptical and rational and things, to be so bold and so just arrogance is basically what it is. There are problems that we don't have answers to, and we need to acknowledge that and say what it is. So anyhow, that was my takeaway from the Magic Sandwich Show. Again, it was just a great episode. And I really enjoyed it. I encourage everybody to go take a look at it. That was from this Sunday, which was November 30th. I'll put a link in the description box of this video. Thanks for watching, and everyone have a good day. Please feel free to leave comments and questions below. Have a good time.